The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday in the Riv.
And the snow wasn't that bad. It doesn't look like we got anything at all.
I don't think we, if we did get anything, it was gone before I looked out the window.
And I was surprised. My streets were all salt. Everywhere you could see was salt as far as the eye could see.
Let's hope. Let's hope we're that lucky this weekend, but I doubt it.
Yeah, and if not, hopefully they salt it that well on Sunday.
We probably ran out of salt and we didn't need it, so. But let's get started, I guess, huh?
Yeah. You know, when it was announced that CoPart, which is a used salvage type of car company with 11, they're in 200 locations across 11 countries, was going to come to Fall River, people thought it was a great idea. I, on the other hand, and so many others came out and said no, because it's a junkyard. And if you go to their facility in Connecticut, you'll see puddles of oil everywhere. Now this site, they wanted to put this in the old Weaver's Cove site, is already undergoing petroleum remediation. Can you see putting a whole bunch of junk vehicles, dumping gas and oil and everything? How much is that remediation going to actually work?
Well, you know, yeah, you're right. And obviously, look, just what we need, another eyesore in this community.
And that's exactly what a lot of other people said.
It's just what we need. And look, this is, this really isn't an auto auction house. This is a junkyard. We all know it. And most of the automobiles they deal with. And I know, because I knew a few people who were in a business that always said if you could get any kind of Toyota, regardless of the mileage, they'd give you, $1,000 or $1,500 for it, regardless of the condition, because they turn the clocks back, ship them over to a different country, and resell them. So, I mean, that's a pretty big market. People don't realize it's a pretty big market today. If you go to some of these other countries, you'll see a lot of old cars, and the way they get them is they fundamentally buy cars that are virtually scrap in this country, and they ship them somewhere, or they scrap them. And as I said, look, we've got a salvage yard up in Westport. So, I think one junkyard's enough. We used to have junkyards, a few junkyards in the city of Florida, running in the center of this, almost in the Flint, actually. They had one right across from the dollar store there on Reuben, I believe it is. It might have been Reuben, or it could have been Massasoit. But there was a Gatlin's junkyard. Used to be there many years ago. Look, the last thing we need, in Fall River is junkyards. And I know we're desperate, but, and I saw this community's already got a negative. Imagine driving into the north end and seeing a giant junkyard. I don't know.
Not only that, it's on the waterfront.
Yeah, it is. And as you said, they're already under petroleum remediation. And junkyards, they've got cars and they've got residual gas and oil in these vehicles, and they crush them. And I think somebody said that they had some pictures of one of their junkyards, and it was an absolute disaster.
Right, and the thing is that, we're trying to build up our waterfront,
Yeah.
to make it more, friendly to tourists. Tourists come in by boat.
Yeah.
Tourists will come in by boat.
And to see the junkyard.
Yeah, they're going to come just to see the junkyard, because it's probably the only pier they can get to get off the boat.
we can have a river boat going up and down, showing the the rusted.
Hey, that was something we never thought about doing.
What's that?
A riverboat casino.
Yeah, we did think of it. But nobody let's let Tiverton and Everett and Taunton make all the money. And we had a little debate here. Actually, we were on Richard Urban's show one time. Remember, we had a to put it mildly, a vigorous debate with some anti-casino people. Look at the money they're getting already. They're trying to expand sports betting already. They want to put an app in. They're getting so much money from sports betting now at the two facilities that they actually are trying to get an app so you can do it while going to the casino because they're getting so many bettors. Sometimes it takes an hour and a half standing in line, and people aren't, they're losing money, and they're losing a ton of money. And people go, oh, gambling. Well, we got lottery tickets. That's, and I'll make the same argument we made on the show. It's ludicrous. If you're against gambling, you should be walking and picketing every convenience store in the city of Fall River that sells scratch tickets and lottery tickets. And the reality is that those things give very little back to our economy in comparison to what a casino does. A casino gives employment jobs during the construction. They give jobs in the casino, permanent jobs, and they give you a ton of tax money. Far more than we get from the lottery, because the Fall River gets really nothing from the lottery in comparison to what we play. Fall River and New Bedford are two of the highest grossing lotteries because people are poor here. The only way they're going to make money is hit the lottery. And what do we get? If you look at the proportion to what communities like Wellesley and Newton, who are very affluent, and people don't play the lottery. They don't go buy, 25 scratch tickets because they're trying to get rich. They might buy a scratch ticket now and then. So you look at what they get from the lottery, it's a disproportionate amount. So when you put casino gambling in a local area and its positive impact on the economy with scratch tickets, it's asinine to be against, that. I mean, I don't care, and the lottery and scratch tickets do not do anything for gambling addiction. They help it because it makes it so convenient. You can go down there and spend your whole paycheck on scratch tickets and lottery tickets. Nobody's going to stop you. But most casinos and most casino companies, they contribute to gambling addiction programs. They actually, when you go into a casino, they tell you if you have a problem with gambling, shouldn't be there. If you need help, they give you a line. So, but I mean, it just goes to show how ridiculous we can get. But I don't. We got off topic there. But gambling and I like casinos, so it's obvious. But
well, when the app comes online, you're gonna get your sports betting app?
Absolutely. The last time I went down there to bet on a fight, I had to, it was my mistake. I went on a Sunday, and the Patriots were playing. I had to wait 45 minutes, and it was earlier in the day. I had to wait 45 minutes just to get to the window to place the bet.
Well, maybe they should have thought about that before they opened this sports betting up and said, we're going to need some extra windows.
Yeah.
They may have to expand.
Oh, they will. They don't realize. I mean, look, that's a major, when you go to Las Vegas, the sports books are, they have seating areas and they have hundreds of TVs and they have a, ton of windows because that's, people like to bet on sports, fans, and, and then they, of course, over there in Vegas, you can bet on anything. You can bet on, which cockroach will get to the top of the wall first. You name it, they'll put a line on it in Vegas. But
yeah.
It's a big part of gambling revenue.
It's interesting because the governor just submitted a bill to sign Massachusetts onto sports gambling now, the sports book. So obviously we're a day late and a dollar short.
As usual. As usual. And let's see, what are we going to hit next?
The Fall River firefighters again.
Yeah. No.
I mean, this is a black eye on the city of Fall River. I mean, you've got one who's out there, drunk driving. You got another who's calling in, fictitious. I like that term.
That's a euphemism.
Fires.
It's a false alarm, which is illegal. And look, I mean, we basically talked about the drunken driving, which obviously is an issue, and we made it clear that, look, I know, as I said, I know that individual, and he was a good firefighter and a good lieutenant when I worked, and he worked with me and under me. And look, he made a mistake. You have to suffer the consequences. And now we have this issue, which to me is just as egregious. And I look at some of the comments here, and they talk about the cost. Well, you know, number one, I don't think they made it very clear in this article what happens when you call in a false alarm. And it's bad enough when a civilian does it. But when a firefighter does it, there's a reckless disregard for his fellow firefighters. Every time an apparatus goes out the door, there's a chance that those firefighters may be killed or injured in an auto accident on the way to the fire, in an accident on the way back to the fire. Obviously, if there's no incident, they're not going to have an issue with the incident. But there have been many cases where firefighters have been killed in the line of duty on the way responding to an alarm. We see it all the time. I remember a case with 4 firefighters in Connecticut were killed on the way to an alarm. As a matter of fact, Neil Rossman, who was our attorney at the time, represented them in a massive lawsuit. And, you know, calling in a false alarm not only jeopardizes the lives of the firefighters, but it jeopardizes the lives of everyone in the community in that district. Because when that apparatus is tied up responding to a false alarm, that means if there's an actual fire in their district, in the area that they would be the first responding units and getting there within 3 to 5 minutes, that means secondary apparatus has to be sent from another area, which will delay response time. And if somebody's hanging out a window, that delayed response time could cost lives. It will definitely cost property, because the quicker they get to the fire, the quicker it gets put out, and the lower the property damage. So this is, look, drunken driving is inexcusable. Ironically enough, the president of the state association at PFFM, Dusty Aldwood, who was one of the best union guys I ever knew, was killed by a drunk driver coming back from dinner with a high school friend and their wives. Both their wives spent months in the intensive care unit, and both he and his friend were killed by a drunken driver. So, you know, I have no sympathy for anybody who gets behind the wheel drunk. Absolutely none. Do people do it? Yeah. Do people make mistakes? Yeah. There was nothing, there was no fatalities in this, and I hope that, I hope he learns. As I said, we support him to get by whatever issue he made, but, you know, hopefully he'll learn from that, and that's another issue. But, you know, this firefighter called in false alarms is jeopardizing the lives of the people in his community and jeopardizing the lives of the firefighters. And secondly, this I have to say this because, you know, it's always Fall River firefighter, Fall River school teacher, Fall River police. They identify it because they say we're held to a higher standard. And, you know, they never say plumber is under investigation, carpenter is under investigation for calling in a false alarm. But that brings me to something that I think a lot of people tend to forget, especially in this society. And we've seen it time and time again, and no matter how many times you say it, it doesn't sink in. There are good and bad in every aspect, in every job, in every ethnic group, in everywhere. Everybody's not wonderful. Everybody that's a firefighter is not a hero. They're all human beings, police. They're all, you know, we have good, bad, and you can't just generalize and say, look, they all have to be wonderful, and they make this like this, you know, obviously it's news. And because it does have consequences. Both of the things have consequences that could actually extend to taking a human life. But the reality is, people are people. And their occupation has nothing to do with it. We've seen sports figures that were held up on a pedestal, and we found out they were despicable human beings. But everybody thought they were wonderful. They were role models, as they said. Role models. Why? Because they can run a football, or they can hit a home run, because they have athletic ability. So we create in our minds this perception, which is not reality. The reality is human beings are human beings, and nobody said it better than Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain, when he said, "Man is the only animal that can blush and the only one that needs to." Because sometimes we do things that we shouldn't do. Most animals just do what they have to do to survive instinctively. But human beings have the ability to make conscious decisions. And when we do wrong, we did it intentionally because we wanted to do it. And if we don't learn from that, we'll do it again. So, you know, it's a terrible thing. You know, for all the firefighters who go to work every day and do their job and stuff, this gives them a black eye because, you know, it's guilt by association. People will begin to condemn the fire department as they condemn police departments for the actions of one police officer or one firefighter. And that's wrong. The Fall River Fire Department has a proud history. We fought some of the largest fires in this nation. I'm not sure, but I know for a very, very long time, Notre Dame fire was the last conflagration in North America. That's one of the biggest fires in history. And all our mill fires. And every house fire that they don't get credit for, because when firefighters put out a house fire quickly, there's never a headline. Because everybody assumes it was not a big fire. Well, it was not a big fire because they did their job. And that's one of the most grossly misunderstood parts of being a firefighter. When we do a good job, most of the time people don't know about it. When they're crawling down a hall at 2 o'clock in the morning and they put out a fire and hold it to one room, everybody says, well, it couldn't have been a bad fire. Well, it wasn't a bad fire because they did their job. They put their life on the line. And it's too bad. I'm you know, it upsets me because obviously it's personal with me. And I've seen both sides. I've had to represent these people as president of the union who messed up. And most of them, after they messed up once, didn't mess up again. So these things happen, and both of these issues are very, very, you know, they are major infractions. And they have to be dealt with, and I'm sure they will. But it's just a sad commentary because of the collateral damage that the fire department will be getting from people saying that this fundamentally indicts the entire department. There are 200 other men that are going to work every day and putting their life on the line, just as with the police department. If one police officer does something wrong, you cannot forget all the police officers that are out there every day protecting you, all the firefighters that are protecting you. So,
you know, one of the things that people are talking about that's upsetting members of the community is not so much that they may have done this, because these are still allegations, okay? But the fact that they've been suspended with pay. and they say that about everyone in Fall River. They're all suspended with pay. Nobody in Fall River ever gets suspended and doesn't get paid. No matter who it is. I don't care if you're in City Hall, I don't care if you're in the DCM, I don't care if you're in the water department, everyone gets suspended with pay. That's a vacation.
Yeah, well, that is one way to look at it. But see, the fact is, because I was involved in that process, I kind of understand what they're doing, because these people, even though obviously they've got him, red-handed on the calling in, and of course, they've got a pretty good case against the chief for doing it, and I'm sure that we'll see what happens, but they still are entitled to due process. They are still entitled to plead their cases, and we don't know what's going to happen ultimately. And to stop their pay completely, you may have to pay them back. The thing is, we have to let this process play out completely, because once this is adjudicated and he's found guilty, now there has to be an internal investigation, or there should be one right now, which then will result in some disciplinary action. And some of that disciplinary action could be suspension without pay for X amount of months or days, or who knows, or termination or whatever. But the reality is that during this period, there's two sides to that coin. You're going to stop their pay before they're actually, then we talk, and we can't, I can't do that, because we sat here and defended the Supreme Court when they were looking at the Supreme Court nomination, and they were not allowing him, they were convicting him before he ever, without proof and without a fair trial and without due process, while they waived it for other people. We said that's wrong. And with these individuals, even though, there's a lot of evidence and we know what they did, but the severity of that after all the facts are out has to still be determined. And then we can complain if the punishment did not suit the crime. Yeah, if the punishment is too lenient, and then we can start, because I'll tell you, I don't know if I may have said it on the show, I may have said it to another individual in a conversation about that, because a lot of people have approached me. I know when I was the president of the union, we did not attempt to get people off who were guilty. Our attorney, and you can call Neil Rossman and ask him, because he's the one who told the city this. If somebody is proven guilty, or somebody violates the rules and regulations of the fire department, and there's no question he's got his due process, it's not our job to try to get him off scot-free. It is our job to make sure that the punishment suits the crime. You don't get the death penalty for being 15 minutes late for work. You don't get terminated. There has to be progressive discipline. Termination is the capital punishment of employment. So these are the kind of things you have to weigh as a president and as somebody who represents people. And these people, they should get their day in court. But to me, the important thing is not what happens with their case, because that's in a legal system, but how it's handled with the city side of the investigation. And I see this article, Kathy Ann Viveris in the Major Crimes Division, but then there'll be a fire department response to whatever is found with these individuals and whatever guilt is attached to their actions. And will a punishment suit the crime? That's what I am interested to see, because to me, that is a critical factor.
Well, one of the things I think the reason why people are looking at this, suspended with pay is, if at the end of this process they get terminated, we don't get that money back. Meanwhile, if they were suspended without pay and they were absolved or whatever the case may be, the city could pay them retroactively.
Yeah.
And then we're not losing the money.
And therein lies the rub. and this is what disturbs me, and people don't like the fact that I am totally objective, and I call a spade a spade. If my friend screwed up, he screwed up. If my enemy did the right thing, they did the right thing. And this is the same thing. These are the same people, I will bet you 90% of these people are screaming about the government shutdown.
Right.
Because they're not getting paid.
Right.
They're not getting paid. But they don't want these people to be paid. And the reality is, hey, look, there's no prohibition for the finding at the end to also take that money back from their final payout. There's absolutely no prohibition.
Well, that makes
And
it
see,
clear
this
now.
is why we get to the fact that I brought up. Let's see what does the punishment suit the crime?
Right.
And if they're ultimately terminated, they are entitled to get paid for certain things like unused vacations, unused personal days that they previous to this offense.
Right. Well,
However, there's no prohibition that the department can say, well, we gave you were paid $10,000 during a period that this thing was adjudicated, and we're going to take $10,000 out of your payout when we terminate you.
But you see, now that clarifies things for a lot of our viewers who don't know that that was an option.
I'm not going to say they're going to do that.
That's right.
And this is why I'm saying we're giving you an insight that a lot of people won't get, because I've been there and done that. I've represented people in issues like this. I've sat and tried to ensure that the punishment fit the crime. And I've also sat there and watched politically connected people not get the punishment that they would do.
Right. And
Not
we've
get
seen that a lot.
any punishment. And I could not say anything because I was the president of the union. And if this politically connected hack was going to get off with virtually no punishment, it only fueled my fire when they tried to over-punish people who they didn't like. And that's the thing that always disturbed me. There is, you know, it is not fair, and I saw it every day when I saw it every day, and I saw tons of it. We had people that were convicted of crimes, pleaded no contest because they knew somebody, got continued out of finding, and didn't even get 1 day suspension for selling stolen goods on fire department property on duty. Why?
Not what you know,
Because
it's who you
they
know.
were connected.
Yep, not what you know, it's who you know.
That's
for
right. So let's see what happens at the end of this scenario, because look, always been accept the consequences of your actions. Try to correct it if it was an improper action. Move ahead, but also don't complain as long as the punishment fits the crime.
Yep. Well, and it was, people were saying, because we don't have a lot of time left here, but people were saying, is this because of civil service that they're suspended with pay? And I think you explained it very clearly why they're suspended with pay.
No.
But
the only thing civil service addresses is the termination procedure. Your rights to be terminated under civil service. There is a protocol. And defined in the civil service regulations, there's a process where you get a hearing on a city and stuff. There's a whole process lined out. I won't go over it, but the reality is that this is the way it is. And let's see what happens. And no show Monday. It is Dr. Martin Luther King Day, so everybody enjoy your long weekend. Hopefully you won't be trying to break up ice and shoveling snow.
And remember, on Monday here at BCC, 8:30 in the morning, we're having the annual Martin Luther King Jr. breakfast. If you have time, if you can get out of your house and you're not frozen in, come and give it a try. It's totally free, and it's a great breakfast.
And CJ's cooking. No, I'm on.
Have a great weekend, everyone, and stay safe in the snow.